mentioned about the Google Doc. So I think we're ready to get started, and I'm going to unmute Miss Snyder, if I can find where she is. There she is. Sorry about that.
Here I am.
And so I want everybody to give a wave to Miss Snyder and welcome there. And I'm going to unshare my screen, and she's going to take over. And she's been given all the questions that you guys submitted back in September. I think 40 people responded to that survey. Obviously not going to be able to get to all of it, but I want her to. She's been able to go through and kind of pick some things. If you don't know, she piloted this SpringBoard Algebra 1 last year. She's one of the ones responsible for one of the few increases in algebra data last year. So all of us are very interested to follow her instruction through SpringBoard and hear what she has to say. Thanks so much, Kathleen, for doing this, and take it away.
Okay, so please bear with me because this whole technology thing is terrifying as far as this meeting. So if I mess up or if I'm slow to get to a screen, I do have some Google Slides just where I've kind of shortened the steps for some of these main questions that we've seen in those responses. And I also was going to show you just on SpringBoard a couple of the places that I go and a few of the things that I do to mirror those questions and to answer some of those questions. So if I mess it up and I share the wrong screen or something like that, I'm so panicked. Y'all just be patient with me because I'm clueless here. Okay, so I'm going to share this screen for the presentation, and then hopefully, is that going to work like that? Can y'all see? Is it there, Roger? Did I do it? Okay. So the first thing I wanted to give before we, get very far into the presentation is my email address, because like Roger said, we did pilot SpringBoard last year. And although I very much feel like it's constantly learning and I've totally changed the way that my classroom runs, it is, for me, I'm every day learning something new. In fact, a student taught me something new as far as submitting answers today. So it is, I'm still learning as we go. But I wanted to share my email address with you so that if you have a question and you wanted to get in touch with me about any particular thing, if I don't answer your question, that's just another way to get in touch with me. So as I was going through the questions submitted, the number one question was, how do I get my students logged into SpringBoard? A lot of teachers were still uncertain as to how to get those user names and passwords and how to actually get on the digital platform. So that was the very first thing that I wanted to address. All of your students have usernames and passwords for SpringBoard, and all that needs to be done is the student needs to sign in through ClassLink. So I just gave a reminder slide, and I'm going to share this set of slides with Roger. He can send them out after the meeting if possible, just to let you look back. But if a student logs into ClassLink, which I'm sure they have for other classes and so forth, if they follow the guide for username and password, their initials and their student ID number, and then their capital initials and their date of birth, that gets them into ClassLink. And as soon as they log into ClassLink, if it'll let me change my screen right there, did that work? Did I do it? Roger, perfect. Okay, so as soon as they go in there and they type in their username and password, I don't know about at all the other schools, but here at Southwood, we don't want them to sign in with Google. We want them to actually sign in following the username and password. It gets them right on in. And so they get to their app screen and they click the SpringBoard icon and they're there. So the one thing that I would encourage you to do if you have not gotten onto SpringBoard Digital yet is make sure that the right textbook is assigned to the right student. So if they're in an Algebra 1 course, then they should have the Algebra 1 textbook, which luckily this year, I guess maybe with the whole parish doing it, I didn't have any textbooks that were incorrectly assigned as opposed to last year. But definitely check and make sure you've got the right book. The second leading question was, how do I create an assignment and how do I create an assessment? And so I gave quick steps for both, and then if time permits, I'd like to show you real quick. On creating a SpringBoard digital assignment, one of my friends, one of my favorite math teachers, Sarah Hankins, on her comment, she said, I figured out how to do it, but it is extremely unfriendly for a teacher. And she was actually very correct. With this being our second year to work SpringBoard, for assessments, those are easily graded and easily, you can pull those scores and reports very simplistic, in a very simplistic manner. The assignments are not teacher friendly. You literally have to go student by student and read each of their responses. The feedback is great, but the grading them after the fact is very challenging. In my class, if I know it's something I want to hand score and it's one of the assignments, oftentimes I'll have them do it in their book and practice on the digital platform. So they are on the digital platform for assignments almost every day, and I don't necessarily grade everything that they do. I give constant feedback. I keep it live in my class and give them that direct feedback as they're on there. So real quick, just to kind of show you what this looks like, I'm going to go to my SpringBoard dashboard. To create an assignment in SpringBoard, you'd want to go to the Lesson Planner tab on your dashboard. So if mine will load up. Hopefully our internet won't be slow. Okay, so once you've done that, you can select whatever date you want the assignment to be posted, and then you choose the class that you want to post the assignment to. So we'll go into my 5th block, and that is going to be the class that I'm going to create a lesson plan for. When you're creating this lesson plan, you can make sure that the date is from, start to finish, however you want that assignment to be. I always tend to forget and have to go back. But, you want this lesson plan to be visible for the students. That way they can go in and log in as a student, select your class, and it'll be right there. All of the standards will be attached. And then as they complete each component of the assignment, they'll get a little check mark off to the side. So remember to make it visible for the student. And when you go through, you can make this as detailed as you want it to be. It can actually be your valid lesson plan if your principal permits, but it can also be as quick and easy as you need it to be as well. I don't use the SpringBoard lesson plan as my lesson plan in my binder, so I don't go through. I make sure that the standards are in there and the title, and the students can see their instructions, but I don't go through and put every single bit of information on this format because it's not the format that I use for my records and documentation. However, you can do as you see fit. So once you've titled all of this, to actually attach an assignment, you go over to the table of contents, and you can, if it'll load up, what is it doing? It's not there. My internet, come on. I don't know what I've done. There's no ebook assignment. Okay, hold on, my internet. Let me go back. See, this is what, let me grab my SpringBoard book. Maybe that's my problem. There you go. Okay, I forgot to click SpringBoard Algebra 1. Note to self, click that at the top as you go through. Now you can see the units that you're in. We're in Unit 2 right now. So if you click over, you can click all of the different activities, the questions, if you want a specific question. I know that yesterday in my group, we did the EA for this unit. And so you go, I'm just going to click something random. Click the plus sign. You can decide, do you want it to be homework or in class? So I'm going to click in class for this particular assignment. And notice that it brought all the standards over just so you can make sure that you're mapping out everything correctly. It gives you certain strategies within that lesson that you could use. And then here, I feel like here you can see all of the different components to that lesson that have now been added. So when a student logs in and clicks into their algebra class underneath your name or whatever math it is that you teach, that will pop up and each component will be there. And to make it quick and painless, you can go off to the side down here and click apply to all of your other math classes if you're going to use the same lesson in any other class. The one thing that is not friendly, in my opinion, if you apply it to 3rd block, I need to make sure that I go into my 3rd block still and make it visible. Notice that when I click into that 3rd block, even after I've applied that lesson, it's still hidden. So you have to singularly go through to each class and make it visible. So that way each student can access the actual assignment. So that is how you create an assignment in SpringBoard. Again, I'm going to say it is not easy to grade an actual assignment. It's much easier. The assessments are scored for you, but it is good, and it's really useful to give them that digital practice typing in those responses as opposed to just pencil paper and in their book. One thing I would encourage you to make sure your students know with their assignments is underneath each question there's a save button. And as they go through and they answer a question, you want for them to press save every single time. We all know internet glitches happen all the time in our rooms. Yesterday during third block, I had a student working on the EA, and after question 3, she lost power. Her computer, her internet went out, and we had to re-sign in. And because she had not pressed save on those questions, she had to start all the way over. So just some information about that. You definitely want to make sure that they're pressing save as they go through, and that they actually submit to teacher. SpringBoard with their assignments and their assessments, things need to be closed in order to score and release score. So make sure that you have them submit to teacher so that you can close that out. Back to my slide. So again, there are all those notes for how to create an assignment and things for you to look for. The other leading question was how to create an assessment. Well, first of all, it's very important to understand that SpringBoard has 3 types of assessments within the digital platform. They have short cycle, end of unit, and then teacher assessment builder. The short cycle assessments I use every single day in my class. It's become almost like an exit ticket. There are 3 questions. Each question usually is of a different level, kind of closing out the lesson. There is a digital version and a print version of each of those lessons, of each of those assessments. The end of unit assessment is 28 questions. There was one person on the Google Doc asking if there were multiple versions. For the short cycle, there's one version and only one version. Those little quick three question quizzes, there's only, the digital version is the same as the print version. They're identical. For the end of unit, there are 2 different versions for the test. If you go through, you'll see a version B and then just the digital version or print version. So there are 2 different for the end of unit. And then lastly is teacher assessment builder. And this is where you go through and you actually create your own assessment. We were on a particular unit for a particular lesson, I should say, for multiple days. And so I had to go through, I had already used the short cycle lesson, so I went and created a different one using the teacher assessment builder. So in just a second, I'll click my screen over and I'll make sure that we all see how to do that. Pulling these reports is easy. Pulling these reports is fast. When you, as soon as your assessment is finished, and even as students are working on those and closing those out, you can get that quick data on those and see how they're doing. So I'm going to go back to my SpringBoard dashboard. Roger, I'm trying to go fast, so I don't take a ton of time. When you want to create an assessment, click on the Assessments tab on your dashboard. And then when you go through, you filter. This is where you pick the type of assessment that you want. Okay, so obviously we're in math. Make sure you're in SpringBoard Algebra 1 or it will do that. No questions attached. And this is where you get to pick what kind of assessment you're going to make. Are you going to choose a pre-made one from SpringBoard Digital, or are you going to customize your own assessment? If you choose one from SpringBoard Digital, you then get to go decide, do you want a end of unit test? This is that longer 28 question test. Or do you want the short cycle? These are what I use almost daily. So I'm going to go here, the short cycle, and here you get to choose, do you want to print it or do you want it digital with the tech enhanced questions? That's what I go with every day. And so then you show your results, and you can go through and pick a certain quiz. So if you want to assign lesson 1-2, you can preview it if you like. You can get the information. One thing I love about these quizzes, and my students have already begun to look, they now go through their standards before they take a quiz, and they see, and we talk about how they match up with the objectives from the day. So they're looking at that. If you want to review the exam before you assign it, you definitely can do that. Roger, I might need, if I can move this, I'm going to click out of that. Did that work? Yeah. So, did it take me back? So I'm going to go and I'm going to actually assign an assessment for practice. The thing about this is you have to go class by class. I don't ever assign these as homework. I always give these in class, and I would assign to the entire class, but if you want to assign to a specific student, you can. And then you click the date, accessible at whatever time. Today, my students had 3 different digital activities they needed to complete, and I made it to where this was the final stop. And this was not accessible until 1:05 or 12:07 or whatever. So you can customize your time. I always put the timer on for the test to end, and my students get 6 minutes on each of these assessments. So you can put in whatever amount of time you want to let, and that's not something you have to do. You obviously have options here, but that is what I like to do. And I don't allow multiple sessions. If you want multiple sessions, you can click that on, and they can go back in and retest. But I like to close it out and pull the data. So then when you okay. Oh, I need to give a time for today. When you submit, I don't know if it's not going to let me because I'm out of school time. I would have to go back. I'm not going to waste the time to do that. But that is how you go through and you assign. And you do have to assign class by class by class. It's not like a click one and then you're done. And then to pull those scores, and it doesn't matter if it's a custom built quiz or, I should show you real quick on the assessment tab. If you want to make your own source, if you go to custom, and I'm going to make my custom show results. This is a custom quiz that I made today, and I just went through. You can go through, you can edit your quiz, clone it, make it different for whatever you're trying to do for your particular group. But that is how you get to making your own assessments. You can go that route. And one person asked, how could they link several different units together, different lessons together into one quiz without doing the big quiz? And that's that way. And you can go to the side and click the star and preview each question before you go. To pull those reports, to pull how your students did, I click on the progress report tab and I choose a class. So we'll go here with second block. That'll be easy. And then I click on Unit Assessment Report. Well, today we'll go with Unit 2 and show students, show all of them. And here's our report. Now, this is several different quizzes within Unit 2 that they've done. And it'll give you via bar graph, and then it'll check them as far as how, which ones they missed, which ones they got correct, which ones they got incorrect. The one thing I like about it is this export button. Everything exports over to Excel fast, quick, and easy. So I put in my slides in my presentation, I print these off daily and score them and put them on the data wall and then put them in my data binder for progress monitoring and so forth. Roger, you need me? You stopping me? Okay.
You on your 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm almost done. That's perfect. I don't even think I'll need that. So we talked about creating an assessment. We talked about viewing assessment scores. One thing I want to make sure that teachers know is to go to that skills workshop. This is one of my favorite tools in SpringBoard. When you are on the SpringBoard dashboard, there's that skills workshop. There's a student version and a teacher version. This is fabulous for RTI as well as enrichment. That getting ready practice is wonderful for a lot. One of the things I read was, how do I keep pace with SpringBoard when my kids are struggling on prerequisite skills, and how do I stop? This getting ready practice actually narrows down to certain specific skills that they'll need all throughout. And so you can give those individually, you can give them whole class. We've looked at a lot of those throughout the school year so far for my groups. And it also gives you correlations. And that I love too, because it's SpringBoard's version of when you're going to review topics. That might not spend a whole ton of time, reteaching when you're actually going to see that very thing later. And the last thing I'm going to say about SpringBoard is that SpringBoard community. If you'll click into that, there are so many conversations that you can read into and get great advice. So many questions are answered via that way because those SpringBoard directors, or whatever you want to call them, are actually answering questions on that as well. So read through that. A lot of the comments are actually feelings that we have ourselves about the program and getting those questions answered. Roger, that's it. I am going to share, Roger, with you this presentation, the slides. So if you'll send those out to help teachers get that information.
Yes, great, thanks. Okay, before we mute Kathleen, does anyone, you should be able to unmute yourself. If you have a question or a comment or concern, something, please take the last couple minutes we have on this section. And anyone?
Kathleen, do you have computers for every student in your classroom?
I do. Here we have a 1-to-1 Chromebook ratio for each student in the classroom.
Wow.
So that makes it a lot easier to get on that digital platform. We have Miss Basco and actually the teacher down the hall. They do not have 1-to-1 access, so they have to, kind of choose which days they're on the digital platform. And I'll say there are some days with my kids where we don't do SpringBoard online. We do SpringBoard in book, because it's easier for them to have a pencil and a paper and actually, move the numbers around that way as opposed to on the computer. So we do have that 1-to-1 ratio.
As an email and the recording and everything,
cool.
and so that those who were not able to participate today can have access to all this information. So Terry, I'm going to stop my sharing and let you take over. And here we go with some Desmos. It's pretty awesome.
Okay. I've actually got 2 screens I wanted to share. I don't know if that's going to work. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. Welcome. Love Desmos. It's easy, it's free, and it's very intuitive. There's going to be so many more things you can do than what I'm going to show you. I just kind of explored it and looked at what some different things could do, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. I hope that you can find some things that work for you in your classroom. The thing one of the things I really like about this is you can either type from your keyboard or you can type from their keypad. Of course, they've got a lot more functions than your keyboard does, but if it's just y equal 2x plus 3, then it's a lot easier to type it from your keyboard. You don't have to set up an account, but if you want to set up an account, you can save graphs so that you can use them over and over again instead of retyping them in, year after year or even day after day. So that's what I do. I use it as a demonstration tool every time we're talking about something and it has a graph that goes with it. I will bring Desmos up and invariably there will be zeros or y-intercepts, or there'll be something or some intersection that Desmos will kind of bring to light. And I really believe that the more ways that you can help students to see things in different ways, then they have a better understanding. They may like the equation better than the graph, but if they can see both of them together, I think it helps. You can use it as a calculator or a graph. For instance, if I wanted to find the square root of 11, there it is. You can it's a calculator. The default setting is going to be functions. This plus sign here will give you different things. We'll talk about that in a minute, but the default setting is graphing or using it as a calculator. To get the next line, you hit enter or just anywhere in the white space. And every time you graph something, it's in a different color, so you can tell there's a good correspondence between what you just did and on the graph. Suppose I want to graph a simple cubic, and this is what I have here. I typed this in Word. I'm going to copy it, and I can just paste it into Desmos. So that's pretty easy. I did have to use the carets, so be careful about that. But and now it graphs, and we were doing synthetic division today with the cubic, and I was able to bring my graph up and let the students see where the intersections were, and I got some really good questions out of it, so I was real proud of that. And of course, if you just click on these things, it will give you the zeros, it'll give you the y-intercept, it'll give you the relative max and min. My students, when looking at that, said, well, that's really a weird number. I said, well, if you got a number that you worked out and it had a radical or it had, you know, something strange, how would you match it up with the with what's on Desmos? Well, they'd put it in the calculator. Yeah, there's a one-to-one correspondence between that, and that's a really good thing for them to know. Earlier today, I had an equation that the relative max was in the 60s. And so the screen that my students could see looked basically, even though we could see the intercepts on the x-axis, all they could see were basically 3 lines. And I had one of my weaker students ask me about, you know, why didn't it look like a normal cubic equation? And I was able to zoom out and show him where it did work. And I really did see a light bulb go off over his head. It was like, oh, you know, so anyway, I like that feature. It is so easy to use. It's so smooth. It's very intuitive. It's, you know, just wonderful. Here's something interesting. You can actually graph in factored form. So I took this cubic and I graphed it. I mean, I broke it down and found the factored form, and you can show the students that, whoa, it's the same equation. And you can turn your equations on and off so that they can see that they're exactly the same. And again, letting students know that there are multiple forms and they mean the same thing and there's connections between them, I think is helpful in learning. So, and I like the fact that they're different colors. I have a TI-84 emulator for my projector computer, but I don't use it anymore. I use this all the time. It's just so absolutely easy to use. And like I said, you can turn these on and off. Another wonderful thing about this, and I'm going to turn these off, is you can graph explicitly. You can graph with an X. You don't even have to have Y equals. You can just graph a circle. And why didn't, there it is. TI-84 can't do that. Not easily, but anyway, I think that's pretty good. And if you get into conic sections, you can add the H and the K and the A and the B and everything else. And if students like Ms. Snyder's class have access to computers and they have access to Desmos, then wow, look at all the explorations you can do and the what ifs and what would happen. In fact, when I was doing my synthetic division PowerPoint, because I also had my observation today, I created sliders, but I just did a bunch of different equations to see, you know, when it crossed twice, when it only crossed once, when it crossed once and touched the x-axis, and it was just, you know, it was just so easy to do. So really, really like that. The other thing I want to show you, one of the other things I want to show you, is how to use sliders. So I'm going to, here, and I need a Y equals. Okay, and I'm going to bring this one in. Now, if I want to add coefficients that can be changed by a slider, all I have to do is I can type in the letter A, and it'll ask me if I want a slider for A. And then I can type in B, and it'll ask me if I want a slider for that. And I can type in C, and it'll ask me if I want a slider. And I can type in a constant D. Oh, yes, do them all. Okay, and it gives me a slider for each one, and you can move them around if they're not in alphabetical order, which I'm a little CDO, so I like to put things in alphabetical order. So, and then that's what I was doing today with the students. We were looking at making the different, you know, types of graphs and how many times they would cross and things like that. So it was a lot of fun, and the kids were asking me, well, move to this number and see what happens, and move to that number and see what happens, which it's the, you know, that kind of involvement that we kind of want the kids to do. Another thing that we can do is to create, hang on, I've lost where I am, restricted domains. So if, let me turn this one off. In fact, I'm going to get rid of some of these because it's getting too low. Okay, oops. Okay, if you want to do restricted domains, you can just put the restriction in braces, and wow, there it is. So absolutely easy to do. And for those of y'all that have been in Caddo for a while, Mike Rayburn helped me with this. He got in there, he loves to explore stuff, and he got in there and found some, found this domain restriction and gave me some good ideas and pointers for creating this today. So, but that's pretty cool. And, we don't always use restricted domain, but when I teach functions and we talk about having a one-to-one correspondence, a parabola does not have a one-to-one correspondence unless you restrict the domain. Once you do that, then you can find the inverse, and that kind of leads to a lot of other questions and interesting stuff. So, just exploring some of this. When you go to the keypad, I love these functions. The trig functions have not only the regular, 6 functions, but it also has the inverses and it has the hyperbolic versions, which is probably a lot more than most of us do in high school. But hey, these kids can download this to their iPad, to their computer, and they get to college and they have one of the most powerful computers, and they don't have to spend hundreds of dollars, powerful calculators, and they don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to bring, a calculator. So I think it's really wonderful. Statistics, gosh, look, the combination and permutations are right there, the factorial. And I don't teach statistics, so I'd have to go in there and really work at learning how to use some of these. But if it's as easy as everything else I've seen, it's probably not very hard at all. And I love this miscellaneous because it has got some cool things in there. Least common multiple, greatest common divisor, the absolute value, which is also down here. It has log, and you can put in a log of another base. Of course, for your integration and derivation, you can do that. It's got sigma. One thing when I started using this was, oh my gosh, it's got natural log, but there's no E. And so I started playing around with it. Again, it's very intuitive. All you have to do is type E from the keyboard, and it knows what you're doing with it. So pretty cool. Here's a root, the any root function. Just kind of pretty cool. The wrench up here, I love this, and a student actually this summer showed me this. You can have a regular grid, and of course here are all the things that you can change, but you can have a trigonometric grid with, let me undo these, with the angles, and they can be in radians or they can be in degrees. How great is that to teach trig? I mean, it's there. You can put it on your, put it up there and let the kids see how you can do some wonderful things with it. So, let's see. Of course, the axes and boundaries and stuff in that, y'all can do that. And changing radian to degrees. Here, if you want to share what you're doing, you can print it. You can export the image. You can copy it, put it in an email. You can embed it in your website for those of y'all that are, will do that. So that's pretty cool. Questions. there, of course, these little quick tours, but the Desmos user guide is really, really good, and everything is simple. I don't know who made this. Somebody can probably tell me, and how they made it free, but it is one of the best things in sliced bread. So, and then here's the other cool feature that other languages. If you have a student who maybe has just come over here from another country, you know, maybe this will help them. So that's always a good thing to do. And I'm almost finished. Here you can embed or do have expressions, write notes, put a table, which I'm still learning, so I haven't got that yet. But the image, which I thought was kind of fun, so I did the St. Louis Arch, and let me get it off of the trig. And how great would that be to try to figure out the parabola that goes with that? Mm-hmm. You know, and of course you can change your axes. So you can put, you know, have kids bring in conic sections or, you know, different things and put them up there and try to figure out what equation goes with it. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. And just about to finish, these 3 lines up here, if you sign in and you have an account with them, you can save your graphs. And these are just some I just kind of played around with. But it has all of these other, gosh, look at all the stuff that you can do with this. I mean, it's just, it goes on and on and on and on with just wonderful things. Depending on what you're teaching, you can use this to help explore things. So, like I said, every time I teach anything that I can relate to graph, I use Desmos. You know, some research has shown that demonstration is just as effective as the kids trying to plug it into a calculator or do it themselves. But, you know, they don't have to worry about anything. All they have to do is look at it and hopefully reap the rewards. But I just think it's wonderful. So.
Awesome. I see a lot of nods and we're getting a lot of chat.
Okay, I'm not sure how to get back to it, so let me kind of play around to see.
No, you're fine. You can stay right there.
Okay.
So Terry, can you speak real quickly about how your students are using Desmos? Do they have it on their phones, their tablets?
I told them they could put it on their phones. I think that's probably mostly what they do, because I've had a lot of students tell me they don't even have a computer at home anymore. They do everything on their phone. Right. Now, I put it on my iPad yesterday, or I've had it on my iPad. I was working on it yesterday. And there's a few things that I couldn't do. Like I couldn't copy and paste one equation from one line to the other like you can on your computer. Wow, you can just do it like that. So there may be a way to do it on the iPad, but I also have a pretty old iPad, so not sure about that. And so you know, like I said, we're doing synthetic division, and I told them, you know, go to Desmos and put it in and check to see, you know, if that's, of course I gave them the answers, but go ahead and do it and see what happens. So, and I got a lot of what ifs today. So that kind of, you know, excites a teacher because you want them to start thinking about stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to bring Kathleen back into the picture a second. And if you don't know this, teachers, Desmos is actually integrated into SpringBoard's digital platform. It's also our calculator that's available to students for spring testing on the eDirect platform. So with that said, before Kathleen tells a little bit about the integration with SpringBoard, just know that as a district, we've pretty much shifted Algebra 1 and Geometry graphing calculators to Desmos, and not really working to purchase those for Algebra 1 and Geometry. Now, Algebra 2 and other courses, certainly we have some calculator money that we have from year to year. We can buy a few sets of graphing calculators. But really want everyone teaching Algebra 1 and Geometry to dig in with Desmos. So, Kathleen, talk about how it's connected to SpringBoard, if you don't mind.
We were stunned to see that was the calculator allowed for LEAP testing last year because it is such a huge tool. I mean, it is amazing, all of the different things that it can do. So I have not, I'm pretty sure that in SpringBoard, the Desmos tab has activities that you can use and things like that. I have not incorporated any of those at this time. All I've done is Desmos with SpringBoard, just combining the two. And so, Roger, I'm bouncing back. Is that my computer?
Yeah, I think it is.
Is that me?
I think so. I'm not sure.
I don't know either. I keep talking and bouncing back. I'm just not going to let one.
Okay.
But we have started using it within each lesson. And so on our computers, and the kids have it on their phones and so forth, but I'm really looking at them using it on the computer as opposed to their phone. That way, when LEAP testing does come around in the spring, it's second nature to them. So we just have one open tab of SpringBoard or whatever's going on and another Desmos open tab. Miss Terry, I did not know about the slider. I'm so excited to use that next week when we get back. But it has really opened their eyes when we were doing things like translations of our functions and shifting up and shifting down. It really, she's right. They finally saw why intercept would change, not just on paper, but why the graphs change and etc. So it really does bring the two together in a nice way. So, I mean, we've loved it. I cannot believe they get to use that on their test.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But we've taken out the handheld calculator in our classroom. We don't even use that anymore because this does just about everything they need it to do. So, and it's free. It's a free app.
Yeah, and I know that most of our teachers across the district are still going to want to use handhelds or allow handhelds to be there on the test, and that's perfectly okay. But you can see where this might be going.